Okay, so here's what we did. And we're going to zoom in on something we're going to look at right here.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got 210 divided by 42.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what we did, we looked at 42 and we noticed it's 2 digits. So when you have a 2-digit number, you want to look at the first 2 digits of this number when you get started. So we said 42, can 42 go into 21? And it couldn't, it was too big. So in this case, this is one of those ones where you have to use this whole number. You can't just pick, do a little bit at a time. So we guessed 42 into 210, maybe it could go 4 times. When we multiplied 42 times 4, we got 168, which wasn't quite enough. We wanted to see if maybe it could go one more time. So since we had just done 4, we decided to do 5. 42 times 5 came out to exactly 210. Now, since we used this whole number, we went all the way over to try to figure this out. The 5 is going to go above that last digit. And so technically we could come down and say, okay, 5 times 42 is 210, and that's 0, so we're done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is one of those where it's an exact number. This first 2 digits was too small, so we just had to use the whole number and do some multiplication. Okay. So next we came over here, and we had 42 into 256. That is 756 divided by 42. We looked at this one and we said, okay, first 2 digits, 42 into 75. So hey, that one's big enough, so we could do that. So 42 can go into 75 one time. Because we tried 2, and we got the number 84, and that was too big. It's bigger than 75. So we got back up here, we said, okay, it can only go one time. And I put the 1 above that 5 because that's what we used. We used 75. We didn't go all the way to the 6 yet. That's as far as we got. So once I write a number here, I go around 1 times 42 is 42. I subtracted that, and I got 33. I can't do anything with 33. I've got to bring down the 6. Remember, anytime right after you subtract, whatever you get right here is going to be smaller than the number outside the garage. So you always have to bring down the next digit. So don't ever try to use the number that you get after you subtract. Go ahead and bring down.
Sure.
Okay. So when we brought down that number, we got 336. Now this one took a little more time because we don't really know an estimate of how many times 42 might go into 336. But we tried a couple of numbers. We tried 30, and that was too big. So one thing we thought about was, well, let's say we did 42 times 10. Anytime you do something times 10, all you're doing is adding a 0 to the number. So 42 times 10 would just be 420. Just stick a 0 at the end. Okay, so when I noticed that, I thought about, okay, 420 is a little bigger than 336. So since I know that, I need a number that's smaller than 10 that I want to multiply by. So we tried 9. That number was still bigger than 336. So we went down and did 8, which came out to exactly 336. So when we got back up here, we're going all the way over. We just brought down that 6. So we've just used this whole number. So the 8 is going to go above that 6 because that's the last number we brought down. So now I've got 8. Anytime I write a number here, I'm going to go over here and multiply. 8 times 42, we already know that, is 336. Now I have 0. So my answer was 18. Okay, 756 divided by 42 is 18. Now keep in mind, just a side note, this makes a math family here. That 756 is the big daddy of the math family. So if I said 756 divided by 18, what would I get?
42.
I would get 42, right? I also know that 18 times 42 equals 756. Okay? All right, one more we looked at. Okay, if I spend $7.50 on 50-cent baseball cards, how many do I buy? Okay, here was my 750. I had 7.50, and then I had 50 cents, which is .50. Now, decimals in this number on the outside of the garage are not acceptable. We want to get rid of those. The only way to get rid of a decimal is to move it over until it's at the behind the number, all the way behind it. Okay? And whatever I do with this decimal, I've got to do with this one. Okay, so I moved both of the decimals twice, and when I did that, if you look here, that goes over here. When a decimal gets to the end of a number, it disappears. So I have a 50. This decimal started here, got all the way to the end, disappeared, so I have 750. Okay, when I came down here for that, I said, all right, this is a 2-digit number, so I'm looking at these 2 digits when I start off. 50 goes into 75 how many times? Well, when we thought about it, we know 50 times 2 would be 100, so that would be too big. So we just said 50 times 1. Since we're using the 75, we put the 1 right here above the 5, because we haven't gotten all the way here yet. 1 times 50 is 50. We subtracted, we got 25, brought down the 0, now we have 250. Now instead of coming over and doing a bunch of multiplication with 50 times something to reach 250, we thought, well, look at 50 and look at 250. They both have a 0 at the end, which means we can ignore the 0 and look at the 5 and the 25. When we did that, we said, well, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. We know that 50 times 5 would be 250.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, okay, I've brought down the 0. So right above it, I'm going to put that 5 that I'm talking about. 5 times 50 is 250. And I subtracted out to 0. So my final answer was 15. Now, what was my question? Baseball cards. How many did I buy? So my answer is I bought 15 cards. They were each 50 cents. Remember, that used to be 50 cents. And once I bought them all, I ended up spending $7.50. And that's our division for today.